So we're all familiar with the default skin, and a lot of the time, the advice given to brand new players is to immediately find a different skin to play with. This is when they're usually recommended Yugen or White Cat 1.0 or something. But why is that? What exactly is it about the default skin that most players agree to be unplayable? Well, in this video, that's what we'll be exploring. I'll specifically look at the standard and mania gameplay, so any other modes or UI elements won't be covered. Make sure to watch all the way through, as I'll also be providing ways aspects of the skin can improve. When it comes to the standard side of things, it seems like the main thing people complain about is that it's just too detailed. Every bit of information given to the player is bright and being animated in some way, and lingers on the screen way longer than it has to. This is also why most players find playing with easy mod to be challenging. When you bump up the object density on the screen, the player is given more information to better understand what's going on. But this also adds to the mental processing effort and time the player has to do at said information. If we go in the opposite direction with high AR, there's less and less time a player can understand and react to the objects. But there's a smaller number of objects at a given time, so players tend to find a middle range of approach rate to be comfortable, as it's a balance between object density and reaction time. This should explain why having extra skin elements that stack and stay on the screen for so long can be difficult to play with. Now, there are a few skins that take the default skin and basically removes all the extra fluff to create a more modern looking skin. I want to take the same idea and go through each skin element and explain how it can be improved or just completely removed. And wow, that's a huge cursor. I'm personally not a fan of cursor trails, especially in this style, but I know this is mostly preference, so I won't be changing it. Cursor rotation is also not that noticeable once you adjust the cursor size accordingly, but expand seems a little bit extra, so I'll remove that. Right off the bat, there's three things that immediately stick out to me: the slider balls, the follow points, and the hit animations. Looking at some of the older default skins for Osu, you can see how the hit circles were somewhat 3D, so the ball animation kind of fits with that theme. The current one is a bit more flat looking, so it feels like the ball stands out by a lot, and I don't think I even see players using it anyway, so this can be replaced. In my own personal skins, I don't play with this outer circle for the slider trail. It's not exactly distracting, and it does provide a real use, especially on more slider heavy maps, so I'll leave it in. Almost every modern skin in this game has invisible 300 hit animations in standard, so these will be removed. If we take a look at the skinning wiki, we can see there's also particle graphics that can be animated, so I'll remove those as well. The rest of the hit icons are a bit big, so I'll use the 1x image renamed as a 2x image so that it appears half-sized. For the follow points, there's a lot going on here. For one, the image itself is doing the most. You're probably more familiar with skins looking like this, or not even having follow points at all. I do want to keep the follow points here, so an easy way to fix them is by adjusting the skin's animation rate and adding extra transparent frames so that the lines appear and disappear accordingly. After making these changes, let's look at the skin now. Okay, that looks a lot more playable. You can see how the follow points fade in at around the same time as approach rate, and fades out as the player aims over them. Sliders also appear less cluttered, but there's still a few subtle things that are distracting. Depending on the approach rate, hit objects can appear before the spinners are complete, so having all of this block most of the playfield isn't good. I would change a lot of these elements to either be transparent or minimal. There's also the star 2 element, which appears on your screen during the combo burst, and it's also on your cursor during the Kia time. I've seen older skins use a pixel for this graphic so that it's less distracting, but most skins just make this transparent entirely. Slider in circles being visible like this is also a bit ambiguous, especially if you play with hidden on or without snaking sliders, so that'll also become transparent. And after all these changes, I think the skin is quite playable. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot about the skin that I just don't like or think could be changed, like the hit circles or the combo colors, but from a more objective standpoint of playability and visibility, I think this works quite well. Plus, I did want to try and keep the skin as close to the original as possible, so I didn't really want to change much of the other elements. Now let's move on to the mania gameplay. This is a mess. Since there's so many key counts, I'll just show 4K and 10K for this video. And even though everything looks tiny and awkward to play on, there's only a few elements I have to change here. For my previous skin, I did talk about column width a bit, and basically I find that 55 is a good number that works for lower and higher key counts, up to 10, and still keeps everything somewhat within your field of view. I'll also go ahead and center the playfield as well. Having the judgment and combo numbers so separated like this doesn't make sense to me, as these elements can serve as a focal point to look at. The divider lines also don't need to be here for each column like this. Really, you would only use this element to divide columns by hands, scratch lanes, or islands as they're called in 14K and up. I'm not a fan of this key/receptor style and the fact that the hit position is so high up, but this can be compensated by playing with the slower scroll speed. The hit lighting is also just barely tolerable, so I'll leave that alone as well. Okay, never mind, that's quite distracting. For the notes themselves, colors and everything, I'm really trying to keep this as default as possible, so there won't be any changes made there. It seems like we really only had to make a few changes and improve visibility by a lot. With 10K, it might be a bit more difficult, as most of us 10K players are used to different column coloring, or the fact that the lighting effects makes it a bit more cramped, but it's still quite playable. Really, when it comes down to it, having a skin that's visually clear and minimal can help keep you focused and takes less effort away from reading. There are players out there who have gotten used to the default skin, and probably even prefer it over a lot of these newer skins, which is honestly impressive in its own way. So, while skins do come down to preference a lot of the time, I still enjoy making these videos and really analyzing skin elements, as there can be some common themes and complaints that majority of the players share. If you want to download and try out these skin edits from the video, I have added it to my Google skin folder. Again, only 4K and 10K have been touched for Mania, so be aware of that.